cooperating to the fullest.
Very big window.
We're looking for you, Isa.
I think the family had noticed that Isabel was missing.
We're checking lakes and ponds near the home of a 6-year-old girl who vanished from her own bedroom 1 week ago.
And it was wide open at 8 a.m.
They were a little frantic.
We love you.
The police were almost on the scene.
And when she heard voices, she started barking.
Isa's father was in court, misdemeanor leash law charges.
And we miss you so much.
Male voices, multiple male voices.
They are considered victims.
He asked if I had seen a little girl that was missing.
We don't want the focus to be taken off Isabel.
You are not losing one bit of interest in this case.
Tell us your demands.
The wide open window, the dogs barking, the family wasn't woken up by dogs in their own house barking.
Tell us what you want.
And there's a lot of stuff that police have known for a few days. We're just finding out.
We haven't eliminated anyone.
Please, please.
My heart is breaking.
You said on the morning that Isabel was found missing, that you could see some people going back and forth.
Correct.
What did you see there?
Well, we did notice people walking up and down the street. We have a couple of cameras in the back. Coincidentally, they happen to be able to capture a picture of the street that Isabel's home is on. This is the house right next door to Isabel's house.
This house right here?
That house right there. And you can almost see the window. This morning, Alicia was doing an interview, and her window was right next door to Isabel's, and she heard some noises out there this morning. So we had these things running that night. We have an additional camera here that sees the alleyway. This is the alley that leads right into the subdivision, just about 30 yards away from Isabel's home.
That was video from NBC's Today. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight, live Tucson at this hour. Cops poring over the floor plan of 6-year-old Isabel's bedroom and the wide gap between her and her parents' room. Police searching a nearby lake with side scan sonar and underwater cameras. Where is 6-year-old Isabel? In the moments before we go to air, we believe we spot Daddy driving by in a white vehicle, tinted windows, still wearing the Isabel T-shirt and the rosary. Straight out to Paul Birmingham, news director, KNST. Paul, what is the latest? What can you tell me about the search of this lake with side scan sonar and underwater cameras?
Yes, this is a lake which is about 6 miles from the Celis family home. This is called Lakeside Lake. It's about 14 or so acres, maybe 35 feet deep. Pima County Sheriff's Department's search and rescue team were out there on a large pontoon, again, with these underwater cameras and this side-scanning sonar. They were brought out there, police at least were brought out there on a tip. Now, what that tip is, we don't know. They were searching for some sort of evidence in the case. That is just one of a number of lakes which are going to be searched as part of this investigation.
Paul Birmingham, KNST, you're telling me cops went to this lake based on a tip. This lake is extremely close to the home, is it not?
It is close. It's not far of a drive at all. And again, this is a place that not only has that lake, but also has some hiking trails and playgrounds. So that's a wide area for detectives to go in and look for any sort of physical evidence.
And remember, Paul Birmingham, it doesn't necessarily mean they're looking for a body there. They could be looking for something else related to this. For instance, in the Lacey Peterson case, it was important to find the cinder blocks that weighted down her body. There are a number of things that could be in this lake. Very often, when I would have a homicide with a missing weapon, I would have cops look in nearby lakes to determine if the block had been removed from the weapon and thrown into the water. That's very, very common. And it also reveals, Gene Casares, legal correspondent in session, if they've got a tip to go to this lake, it suggests to me that they believe the perpetrator may not have been able to go very far from the home to discard evidence. Hold on. I'm going to go to Natisha Lance, standing by right there at the family home. Gene, I'll come right back to you. Natisha, what can you tell me about the dad being spotted as we go to air, driving by in a white vehicle, still wearing Issa's T-shirt and a rosary?
Well, Nancy, just as we were setting up here, we did see a white Lincoln drive by. There was somebody else driving the car, but in the passenger seat, it appeared to be Isabel's father. And I could see through the window those rosary beads that he was wearing in the first press conference that they spoke at, speaking to the public, as well as the Bring Isa Home shirt. Now, in addition to that, the car drove by again past us. The grandparents live at the end of this street. The car parked there. 3 people got out. We couldn't make out exactly who it was because we're too far away, but I did still see that T-shirt with Isa's face on the back of it.
Joining me right now, I'm hearing in my ear also there at the family home, a special guest joining us. It is Rick Moore, the owner of Moore Security Services. His business has surveillance cameras pointing directly at the Celis family home. Rick Moore, thank you for being with us. Rick, question. You own Moore Security Services, M-O-O-R-E, and your specialty is, in fact, surveillance cameras and other security devices. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. We also do intrusion, and it's More Security Solutions, Nancy. Thanks.
So a lot of people are wondering, why would you have cameras trained on the Celis family home? Explain.
You know, Nancy, that was almost a coincidence. Really, our thought process when we set the cameras up was to protect the back of our facility. Our showroom is literally about 25 yards from where we're standing right now. We put a couple of cameras in the back to protect the back entry in case of intrusion on our showroom, to protect the vehicles that are parked there for the employees. And, of course, there's a lot of graffiti and tagging going on, so we were hoping to maybe use it for that. And we have seen tagging going on, but coincidentally, the cameras are looking right over in this area. We've got a couple cameras that are facing the alleyway, and then one that happens to see right towards the street that Isabel lives on.
Okay. Rick Moore, everyone joining us, the owner of Moore Security Services, actually has cameras trained on the Celis family home. Have cops come to your place and taken or looked at video of that alley behind the Celis family home, which was being videoed at the time of the kidnap?
They certainly have, Nancy. They contacted us right away about 8:30 on Saturday morning. We do have some signs up in the back of the showroom area where the cameras are located, has our phone number on them. So what they did was they contacted us right away. My general manager came down to the facility, to the showroom, interviewed for 4 or 5 hours with detectives, looked at footage then, reviewed footage, then came back Monday and spent basically all day. Then they had us record the information for them on a USB drive. We furnished them with all the information that was stored on the hard drive on a digital recorder. They took it with them. Hopefully they've got it now and they're pouring over that information that may provide some leads for this investigation.
Okay, very quickly, Rick, where is the original video?
The police have it now. I imagine it's at a substation, and hopefully they're pouring over it, Nancy.
And, you know, the reason I'm asking that is because there becomes a whole lot of issues at trial trying to get things into evidence that are duplicates when the law requires the highest and best evidence. In other words, the original video. I was just immediately thinking ahead. Okay, Rick, have you seen the video?
You know, I saw bits and pieces of it, Nancy.
What did you see?
The detectives and the investigators. I'm sorry?
What did you see?
What did I see?
Yes.
You know, what we see is a lot of vehicles, Nancy. We did see some people coming through the alleyway. The cameras are trained right onto the alley, which leads right from where we're standing right now. So we see cars coming in and out, a lot of vehicles, makes, models, color, things of that nature. And I'm sure that's what the police are using to investigate it. We also saw some people wandering through the alley. Whether that's pertinent information, I'm not sure, but it is information that the police took with them, and I'm sure they're chasing down those leads.
Got it. Okay, Rick, when you state that you see cars going by, you can see tag numbers, you can see people, what did you see around Isabel Celis' home that Saturday morning around 8 a.m.?
You know, what we saw that morning, again, it had been light for a little bit. What we basically saw, the first people we saw on the street, we did see some activity in the alleyway right behind us, but the police have all that evidence. What we saw right here was a couple of people walking up and down the street, Nancy, and we think that that was maybe the father and the brother. And then the police had us right at that moment cut off the digital recording, and they took that evidence, and that's when they took it away. So we think that that was just the father.
So they did not let you see the rest of it?
No, ma'am, they did not. We don't have it anymore.
What you observed, Rick, that morning around
Yes.
8 a.m., approximately 8 a.m., is Isabel's father and his brother, which would be Isabel's uncle, walking around in front of the Celis home.
Nancy, that's conjecture on my part. I think that's who it was. The police didn't want us to speculate about who that was.
Okay, great.
We didn't know Isabel's father
I get
at the time. Now
I get it, Rick. I get it that you don't know who the people are. You earlier mentioned, quote, activity in the alley. What activity in what alley?
Well, there's an alley, Nancy, right behind us, about 25 yards right behind us. That's, again, about 25 yards from the front door of Isabel's home, and that runs right behind our showroom, and that's where our cameras are trained on. So there was activity up and down that alley.
What kind of
Probably
activity?
pretty typical activity on a Friday night.
What was it? That's what I'm asking. What did you see?
Again, it was just people wandering through the alley, vehicles coming up and down through the alley, and vehicles walking, coming out of the alley that's right here in front of Isabel. Now, what makes and models and tags were, that's in the police hands now, Nancy.
Question, is your video infrared?
It does have infrared technology, fortunately, Nancy, so these are outstanding cameras.
What does that mean to us dummies?
We've got there. What that means is that now we have the capability with this new technology, Nancy, that we can see things from a pretty good distance at night, and these cameras do work very well at night.
So your video is going to be able to capture surveillance of tag numbers and people, even though it's dark outside, right?
It is pretty amazing technology, Nancy, and that's kind of the point, is that there's a lot of new and great stuff that you can use to protect yourself and your community and your family.
Narrow a timeline.
Friends of the Celis family say that Isabel was here at the ballpark watching her brother's baseball game the night before she went missing. She was put to bed at 11 o'clock.
At 6:30 in the morning on Saturday, I woke up. My dogs were going crazy. Their dogs were going nuts. And I remember briefly waking up and hearing male voices outside my bedroom window.
The mother did not see Isabel before she went to work.
She left for work at approximately 7:30 in the morning.
8 o'clock is that timeline when the father went into the room to check on her, to wake her up, but Isabel is gone. Reports one of her siblings collapsing and going into a neighboring store, telling the worker there, "We were asleep, we didn't hear anything." By 8:14 is when he called police.
At this hour, we're getting reports that the search is now expanding to a park 6 miles from the family home, and that based on behavior of detectives, it seems indicative of suspicion or perhaps evidence that has not yet been discussed with the public. Tonight, we investigate the clues left behind with our special guest, Rick Moore, who had video cameras specifically trained on the Celis home. He describes seeing who he believes to be Issa's father and uncle coming out of the home around 8 a.m. that morning, walking back and forth, apparently looking for Issa, we can surmise. Also, he has infrared capability that during the night can get tag numbers, even descriptions of people up and down that area. Rick Moore is with us and taking your calls. Now back to you, Jane Casares. I was going to you earlier, legal correspondent in session. Let's narrow down the time of that 911 call, Jean.
Well, the 911 call was made shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning when it was discovered that Isabel was not in her room. So everything seems to conform to that 911 call. But at 6:30 in the morning, when the men's voices were heard by the neighbor, what does that surveillance video show at that point?
What I'm trying to determine is the neighbor, Alicia Stardivant, that spoke to us in depth, states that she heard dogs barking at 6:30 a.m. You see people out looking around at 8 a.m. She states that Alicia's tournament, the family was at her front door at 8 a.m. banging on the door. What time was the 911 call exactly, Jean?
I think it was a little bit after 8, but Nancy, what she said corroborates a surveillance video that sees the uncle and possibly the father of Isabel or the brother walking outside on the street. She corroborated that.
Ellie, what time do we know exactly was the 911 call?
Yeah, exactly. It was 8:14, but police did say family did a quick search before they called.
A desperate search to find Isabel.
We are here today to plead.
To the person or persons who have Isabel, tell us your demands.
What happened to the 6-year-old little girl?
Isabel's window is right on the other side of this wall. It's about 40, 50 feet from the street.
Window was open and a screen was off.
Very scary. It makes you think twice.
Children just are disappearing miraculously from their bedroom.
Check in your kids every night.
We are not ruling out essentially anybody as suspect.
Tonight, we put out the word. Police in the last hours have made a public plea for photographs and video from anyone who may have been at a park or event where the Celis family attended. That includes that Little League game the night before she goes missing. They were there very late. This as police pour over the floor plan of the home. Let's see the floor plan, Liz. We have obtained the family home floor plan. What are your observations, Ellie Josted?
Well, Nancy, you can see that the bedroom we believe was Isabel's bedroom, is all the way on the other side, almost the opposite corner of the house from where the parents are in that master bedroom, we assume. There's the family room, the kitchen is in between, so it's not as though they were right next door to her bedroom.
Okay, Ellie, for our viewers, look at the graph and explain to viewers which bedroom is Isa's and which is her parents'.
Right. You can see on the left side of your screen, you've got the middle bedroom. That's the one Isa is sleeping in the night this happened. You've got the right top corner. That's the master suite where we assume the parents sleep. In between, you've got this family room area, and you've also got a kitchen. That's what that long, narrow bar is there.
So for the parents to get to Isa's bedroom, they got to go out their door, take a turn through the kitchen, take a turn kind of going around that door right there through the family room,
right,
through a door, take a turn into Isa's bedroom,
right.
Correct?
That's right, Nancy.
Question. I want to go out to Mark Class, president and founder, Class Kids Foundation. Why are police poring over the floor plan at this hour?
Oh, well, listen, Nancy, you always have to look within the family first. All statistics take you there. Then they take you outside of the family to ultimately the stranger abduction. But to give a little context to this and why the authorities are searching a body of water 6 miles away, 76% of abducted or murdered children are found within a 12-mile radius of their last known location, and 46 of those are found within 1.5 miles of their last known location.
And with the help of Pima Sheriff's Department, boats and sonar equipment, investigators searching the lake at Lakeside Park for any sign of not only Isabel, but evidence that might lead to her.
Isabel's window is right on the other side of this wall. It's about 40, 50 feet from the street.
This is the house right next door to Isabel's house.
My bedroom is directly across from hers. It's going to be right over this wall right here. Their dogs were going insane, completely nuts.
She thinks the men were speaking English, but she isn't sure.
This is critical because it helps narrow the timeline.
Special boat equipped with sonar and an underwater camera searched a local lake for several hours.
They have not named an official suspect or person of interest.
Tell us your demands. Tell us what you want.
We are not losing one bit of interest in this case.
We just wanted to let you guys know we have tremendous gratitude toward Detective Sabori and his elite team. Our community and the Little League community, and the TMC family crew, and the millions of people around the world who continue to pray and volunteer their time and effort and endless efforts in finding my Isabel. We do not want you to focus, or we don't want the focus to be taken off Isabel by us being in front of the cameras.
The parents reportedly back in hiding as they state very plainly they do not want to be the focus of this investigation. But many naysayers suggest that by them refusing to go public and remaining in hiding, they have put the focus on themselves. Unusual because the father is a very public person. Not only do you have those shots of him as a tenor in the Tuscon opera, not only has he performed on stage as a tenor in the opera, a beautiful tenor voice, he works with the Little League. He is out and about in the community, very, very high profile. There you see some of the shots of him about to perform in the opera. This is certainly not his everyday garb, but many people, Alicia lawyers, Eleanor Odom, Karen Conti, Daryl Cohen, state that the reason the parents have been a focus is because they would not come out and make a public plea. They, or their camp, stated that they were not coming forward because police told them not to. But I, face-to-face, asked Lieutenant Pacheco, was that true? And he said no. We did not tell them not to make a public plea. And the reality is, Eleanor, and I'm going to ask Mark Klass in a minute, when his daughter Polly went missing, he just basically laid on the police HQ steps and said, take my DNA, take my fingerprints, do whatever you want to do. I'll do a lie detector. Get the focus off me and onto my girl Polly. I want her back. He made public statements, the works. So by them not trying to be the focus, they have unintentionally, I guess, become the focus, Eleanor.
Well, yes, Nancy, and of course everybody reacts differently in a crisis situation, so we don't know what the police are doing, but we do know this: they usually start with looking at the people who are closest to the missing person. So of course they're being looked at, and that may be part of the reason that they haven't come out and made public statements, because the police have been busy asking them questions and obtaining information.
And also, when I interviewed Lieutenant Pacheco, to you, Daryl Cohen, I was asking about Polly's. Of course, he wouldn't answer, but he said they're doing everything within their power to solve this case. That says to me, reading between the lines, they have either administered Polly's or have tried to administer Polly's, Daryl.
Well, certainly if they were my clients, I would immediately have them take a polygraph, keep the results private unless until they passed it. If they passed it, I would give it to the authorities.
Wait.
Absolutely.
So you're saying if your client had taken and failed a polygraph, you would keep that secret, but if they had passed a polygraph, you'd put it out there?
Absolutely, because we don't want them to be a focus, but right now they're doing exactly what they should do by staying in the background, letting the authorities do exactly as they need to do, which is to exhaust every possible alley.
Daryl Cohen, I could not disagree with you more, because our society, because of the crime rate, has become almost numb to missing people. Not numb because we don't care, numb because we hear it. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. You just can't take it all in. You hear this one's missing, that one's missing, this body found, that body found. You don't want your child to blend in and become a statistic. And how do you keep that from happening? Karen Conti, you get yourself out there. You put it on the line. You take the heat. You take the questions. But people remember, Isabel Celis. That's why they should be out there. I don't care if they're upset. I don't care if they are emotionally distraught. They have to do this, Karen.
I think they've done what they need to do, Nancy. I understand why they're backing off. They don't want the attention on themselves. But listen, they're consistent behavior here. Everything's corroborated, the time deadline. They're walking outside looking for their kid. They call the police right away. They offer a reward. They seem sincere. I don't see anything here at all that would lead
well,
you
also,
to believe
you're
that
right,
they did
Karen
anything.
Conti. Police are saying, Karen, that they aren't fully cooperating with police, and there's a lot of times we don't hear that from police. Very quickly, back to you, Mark Class, President, Founder, Class Kids Foundation. What is your advice for the Celis family?
Well, my advice is very simple. You get out of the camera. There is nobody that is going to be a better advocate for their child than they are. And we're in a time and place right now with missing children in America where there's an intense focus on it. All of the cable news channels focus on it. These are mysteries that are enduring until they're solved. And certainly the people in the center, the parents, have a very big role in advocating on behalf of their children and doing absolutely everything they can to bring them home. So you cooperate with the cops, you cooperate with the media, you understand that they can get more attention for your child with 10 seconds on the evening news than you can nailing flyers on telephone poles for 100 years, and you take advantage of those opportunities to make sure people understand that your child is still missing, who she is, what she is. Get them invested in them. Get the people behind it so that forces law enforcement to continue a full-scale investigation.
Mark, did you take a poly?
I took a poly within 6 days, yes, indeed.
Wow, and that takes a minute to set up. With me, Mark Class, President and Founder, and I'm not saying I don't understand how they're feeling. I've lost a fiance just before my wedding to murder. I don't think that could possibly compare to losing a child. But Mark Class has lost a child, and this is his message to get out there. Another question very quickly to you, Paul Birmingham, KNST. Why are police refusing to say that window that is open? And the eyewitness tells me that window is never open, that the screen is never off, but it was that morning. Why are cops refusing to state that window is the point of entry, Paul?
Well, again, they're keeping a number of things close to the vest. They say this is being done to maintain the integrity of the investigation. Though one thing I can say, looking at that floor plan and hearing what Alicia Sturdivant, the neighbor, said to you yesterday, that does corroborate. That floor plan would be showing her room, that is Issa's room, on the left side of the screen or on the east side of the home. That would be right next to Alicia's bedroom or her room. So that part can be corroborated, and even if police aren't going to say this is in fact her room, we can at least surmise that the parents would be in the master bedroom all the way on the other side of the house.
And we also know that she typically slept with her brothers. That's not unusual. My twins sleep together. Mark Harold, former officer, Atlanta PD, Observations of White Noise, author. What do you think about the floor plan? What does it say to you, Mark Harold?
Well, it's definitely something to look at. It takes into question how reasonable it is for the parents to say they didn't hear anything. And it's likely, from what I can tell, there's a single-story home. It's a fairly large home. And then for them not to hear anything from way across and opposite corners could be pretty reasonable. As far as why the police aren't releasing it as a point of entry, they may be looking at the window having been pushed out from the inside as a way to hide what happened inside the house. So anything's possible. That may be why they're hesitant to say it was a point of entry. They may have information that was pointed outward.
Eleanor Odom, Kieran Conti, Daryl Cohen. Eleanor, very often we find that the location of evidence, such as that lake nearby, if it has any evidence in that, suggests where the perp is. If the perp lives 20 miles away, they may discard of evidence further from the home. If the perp lives closer to the home, they will discard of evidence closer to the home. Explain.
Well, yes, Nancy, and you've got to also think people are going to discard evidence where they're familiar with it. You know, they're going to throw it in a lake that they know, or maybe in a trash dump that they know about. That's where you're going to find a lot of key evidence. I remember trying a murder case where they found a lot of the evidence where people dumped their trash in one of those big trash dumpsters. And it was all there. It's where the defendant drove by every day. So, of course, you're going to look at that stuff.
And Daryl Cohen, think about it. The evidence that you found when you were a prosecutor and that you encounter as a defense lawyer, that I found as a prosecutor in inner city Atlanta, the closer it is, you often find it close to where the perp lives, works, or on their route.
Oh, absolutely, Nancy. What ends up happening is the perp has done something, whoever he or she may be. They want to get rid of the evidence as quickly as they possibly can. And at this point, they're not normally thinking the way they should, so they just dump it as they can, when they can.
Agree or disagree, Karen?
I agree. I'm also interested in the idea they're looking at the baseball field where the little girl was, because maybe there was someone there scoping her out.
A lot of breaking developments in this story.
This is where we're at in an investigative phase.
Possible entry point into Isabel's bedroom. The window was open and a screen was off.
When I discovered that she was missing and I looked over the wall, it was wide open.
She does report hearing some voices, and we're looking into that.
It is plausible that someone entered that house, a stranger.
I think the family had noticed that Isabel was missing. They were a little frantic.
We don't want the focus to be taken off Isabel.
Person or persons who have Isabel, tell us your demands.
Bark a lot, but this was a different type of barking. This was a very, very frantic barking.
They got to find her. That's all there is.
In the search for 6-year-old Isabelle Celis.
According to reports we are just now getting, the detectives seem to be indicating suspicion or perhaps evidence that they have not revealed to the public. At this hour, a nearby lake, Parkside, being searched by side scan sonar and underwater cameras. Michael Gast, founder of the National Academy of Police Diving, explained to me how well underwater cameras can pick up items underwater, objects underwater, and why would they not be diving with divers, Michael?
I don't know why they wouldn't be diving with divers. That's the bottom line. You got to get the divers in the water. But cameras are going to be dependent upon the visibility and depth of the water, the clarity. The side scan sonar is open to interpretation of the person using the sonar. It's a computer composite of the information that comes out, and then someone has to read that and interpolate from that. And usually they're pretty accurate, but you can be off a little bit and be totally in the wrong direction.
You know, I've only dived in the open water, out in the ocean. I've never dived a lake. What is the difference in searching in lake water versus open water? I mean, depending on the open water, you can see very clearly, 150 feet. I don't know if that's true for a lake.
Well, lakes tend to have a lot of decaying vegetation, which causes tannic acid to be in the water, which turns it into a kind of brown color and limits your visibility. But also the bottom terrain is usually silty, which stirs up very, very easily with the slightest movement of both mechanical devices and fish and divers. And so you're more limited in what you're able to see as an overall area. But
Would it make sense to you? No, go ahead.
Well, I can tell you this, that 2 divers doing a circle search can cover about 4 acres of lake bottom in about 2.5 hours.
What's a circle search?
It's having a diver in the center and a line going out from that diver to another diver, and they concentric circles working out to about 50 feet, which is 4 of those make an acre. And 2 divers can cover about 4 acres in about 2 hours.
It may make sense that they're trying side scan sonar, and if they pick anything up on sonar, then they'll send the divers in. To Dr. Bill Lloyd, board-certified surgeon and pathologist. Dr. Lloyd, I know that you are bursting with analysis. Hit me.
It's been almost a week, Nancy. If there's a body in the water, it should be floating by now, unless it was weighted down. Remember, this is fresh water, and so the body's going to decompose much quicker than a body placed into salt water or a body that's been buried.
Paula Bloom, clinical psychologist, weigh in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we don't know what's going on with the family. I just want to say one thing, which is let's not assume that them not wanting to be in front of the cameras means that there's something going on with them that's negative.
Nobody is assuming that at all. In fact, they have come forward. They are fully cooperating with police, and they're saying the reason they're not coming forward more is because they don't want to be the focus.
Right, because listen, we know lots of people who've been extremely guilty who've had no problem being in front of the cameras, don't we?
Tell it. I'll never forget Susan Smith crying and carrying on all the time she knew she killed her children. Very quickly, CNN heroes. We are taking your calls. Vicky, Arizona, what's your question, dear?
First of all, Nancy, I'd like to say thank you, and God bless you for all that you do for the victims out there. They have stated that Isabel usually slept with her brothers. Right. Do we know why she didn't that evening? And also, have the brothers been questioned?
The brothers have been questioned, to my understanding. Natisha Lance, what do we know about the sleeping arrangement?
There is that report out there, Nancy, that Isabel would usually sleep with her siblings, and we don't know the reason why she was in her own room this particular night. And yes, as you just stated, the brothers have been questioned by police.
Denise, Oregon, what's your question, dear?
Well, when I had heard the neighbor's statement yesterday about hearing multiple male voices, my immediate thought was a kidnapping for the sex trade industry, just because there was multiple voices. Are they looking into that? I mean, I'm sure they are, but...
Paul Birmingham, KNST, what do you know?
Again, police are saying they are not ruling anything in or out in this case. Everyone remains a person of interest. So that's something they have not ruled out at all.
The reward is mounting. Tip line 520-882-7463. Let's stop and remove.